Hi guys, Boys in the Hood. Today we're talking about music for pleasure from the Damned. This is the textbook sophomore slump record. Everything that could go wrong kinda did, but mainly they were just rushed into making an album when they weren't ready. I was just about to tell you when it came out, but I don't have my notes here. Oh, these are notes for something else. Sorry. I could just I don't need the notes, but I made them, so I kind of feel like I should use them. Fuck are they? Oh, I guess I don't have the notes. Oh yeah, I do. Okay, I know what I'm doing. Sorry about that. So anyway, Music for Pleasure was the follow-up to the band's debut album. Debut, Damn Damn Damn, which was released in 1977. This album is the one after it, recorded at Britannia Row Studios in London. It was released on November 18th, 1977, their second album of the year. And they had great success with their first one, like I said, started punk rock basically. And I know there's an argument to be had about Iggy and the Stooges, and the Ramones. But as far as what the general public thinks of as punk, an angry guy with a British accent, spiked hair, safety pin, like that, what is remembered as punk, started with these guys. They were one of three groups that all came out at the same time. These guys came out a little bit before. The other two being the Sex Pistols and the Clash. They all ran the same circle. They had all previously had different guys from each band in their bands. London SS, Masters of the Backside with Backside with Chrissie Hynde, who later went on to form the Pretenders. This was like any other music circle from any town. Everybody played in everybody else's band at one point. And the Damned were the first ones to get their shit together to get a record out. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that they signed to a local indie, which is also probably what has consigned them to perennial third place when you talk about the big three British punk bands. But for me, the Damned is a better band than the Sex Pistols and the Clash in almost every metric. And that first album, written by mainly by guitarist Brian Robertson or Brian James, whatever. I forget which one he prefers, or he had a real name. It was either Brian James or Brian Robertson, and he changed one of them to the other. It doesn't really matter. I don't know why he did it. It's so minor. If he was gonna change his name, he should have did like a Rat Scabies or like fucking Captain Sensible. Should have went all the way. It's very half measure. But anyway, he wrote most of the songs on the first album, and he was kind of the leader. And he wanted to write all the songs. So after the first one was successful and kicked off the whole punk rock thing in the UK and some might argue the world, they wanted another record right away from this band. They were on the Stiff label, which was a indie label, and they wanted them to make a new one right away, but they didn't have any songs. This is like the exact thing that happens to a band on the sophomore slump. I'm sorry, my nose kind of took me away. I'm like, why does it say Whitesnake here? Oh, it was 1975, after which Whitesnake... What the fuck is this? Barney Bubbles? Lou Edmonds, Nick Mason. Okay, I'm really sorry. Yeah, I'm not good at this. I'm getting better. But I'm going to ignore those notes and just not even going to talk about it. I don't know what the fuck this is supposed to even mean. 1975. See, the thing is, I write in the shitty shorthand, and even like I can't understand it. But anyway, they were back in the Britannia Row to record a second album without any songs. putting the notes down. We're just gonna freestyle rap, you and I. And I do mean you and I, because no one watches this shit. They went in there with no songs. And I read an interview with Sensible, and he was talking about sitting around the rehearsal space, talking about having no songs, and him and Rat were just staring at Brian's guitar, saying, well, the songs are on there somewhere, which I thought was kind of funny. They were just kind of at a loss, and I guess he wrote the songs for this album in something ridiculous, like in 3 days or something. Might have been 3 weeks, but I think it was 3 days, out of bits and pieces of stuff he had. And for some reason, they wanted Syd Barrett to produce their new album. I think that idea might have came up when they thought they had more time to record, and they weren't pushed by Stipp to get in there and record another album. So I think they had ideas for something a bit more exploratory and creative. I know Sensible is a big Pink Floyd guy. He's a big Pink Berries guy, too. I think all of them were. Brian, though, he seems to me like he's a Stooges MC5 guy. I don't know if bringing in Syd Barrett would necessarily have been his idea, but maybe Captain and Baney and Rat wanted it, but whatever. Another thing about this, which is kind of funny, I mean, probably wasn't funny for Captain Sensible, but somewhere along the line, it was decided they need another guitar player. And I'm sure Sensible must have been like, oh, great, that's awesome, you know, now who are we going to get to play bass? And they're like, bass? No. You're staying on bass. We're going to get someone else to play guitar. Like, how the fuck did he not quit? Like, what's that all about? You never see that talked about. But, like, Captain Sensible is not only the best punk rock guitar player, he's one of the greats in just the rock field. I mean, if Rolling Stone can put Steve Jones at number 97, Sensible should at least get in the 60s, you know, on the top 100 guitarist countdown thing. He's just so creative and technically great, but, I mean, that's not really the main thing about him that's good. He's got an ear for melody. His solos are ones you can hum. And he gets solos in there a lot of times, which you don't hear a lot in punk rock. And he was basically musical director once Brian left. I know Vanian has a lot to do with it too, but we saw the difference between the Vanian Sensible stuff between the Strawberries and Phantasmagoria albums. Vanian's style is, I love his shit, and he's great. He writes good songs too, but Captain Sensible brings the humor and the sort of whimsy. And when he left the band, the album they did without him immediately after was way more serious. And but we're not talking about that. We're talking about music for pleasure. If I didn't have this moody, spooky, ooky lighting, you would see that I actually put a lot of color in that and tried to copy the front of the album. November 18th, 1977. So anyway, they get a new guitarist, Lou Edmonds, who was a guy around the scene. He went on to play for the Maycons and Pill, actually, which he's still in the new reconfigured version of Pill. He was a legit guy at the time. He was played in a couple different bands. And he came in on guitar, and it basically didn't make any difference at all. You wouldn't notice he was there. I hear it was the same thing live. But whatever the reason, they got him in the band. And then they wanted Syd Barrett to produce. But, I mean, if you'd been following Pink Floyd, knew anything about them at that time, Syd Barrett was, like, had become a recluse and was in no condition to produce a walk to the mailbox, never mind a fucking album. But, so this is a mystery to me, but I don't know if it was the Pink Floyd office or thinking maybe we should keep our hand in this new emerging music scene because people are kind of calling us part of the dinosaur set and we don't want to look old and stodgy. So, yeah, we can't get you in touch with Syd, but we got a guy for you. All-star producer Nick Mason. Now, all-star producer is, I don't know if that's the right description for him, because I don't think he produced a thing ever, except what he did with Pink Floyd. I mean, he wasn't producing anything there either. Great drummer. He's perfect for Floyd. And he's just a good drummer overall. I like his style. But, like, why is he producing this album? I don't think anybody knew why. I don't even think the band knew why. I think the idea was get Sid, he's a psychedelic guy. Captain likes psychedelic stuff, and maybe Vanian backed him up on it, and whatever. And that in any case, they couldn't get him, obviously, so it became Nick Mason. It doesn't make any sense. But anyway, for whatever reason, they brought him in. And he just didn't know what to do. He kind of did the same thing that Nick Lowe did on the first album. From what Nick Mason says, I'm calling him Dave Mason. Dave Mason's a different man. From what Nick says, he was just kind of hands off. He said he was recording Sensible, and he did a couple takes with him, and he asked me if he wanted to do another one, and Sensible's like, why? So they didn't need a producer. So I think it was really just having the name of someone from Pink Floyd, but I don't know how that would buy the Damned any credibility, especially in this new musical movement of killing the old and moving ahead with the new. But the Damned embraced the idea of punk rock more than any of those bands at the time. Not only business-wise, kind of chopping their balls off by not signing with the major to maintain that credibility, but in their mind, when punk rock was introduced as you can do anything you want, they felt like, well, yeah, anything we want. We want to branch out into this. We want to do this and that. Punk sort of became this very boxed-in sound and idea and look, and it happened pretty quickly. The next wave of punk bands, there were some good ones like Sham 69 and a lot of other groups. I liked them, but they definitely hardened the cement on the idea that punk rock is a certain thing and it sounds a certain way. The Damned never stuck to that because as originators of the form, however much of a hand you think they had in it, there were some of the originators of the form, and their idea was it meant you could do anything and really do anything. So that's what they did. Not on this album, though. On this album, they shit out a bunch of tunes that I actually like a lot, but you can hear when you listen to them with a couple months, if they'd played them live, would have been a much better album. And in fact, it was never going to be as strong as the first one, but it would have been way better. So looking at this thing, right? Where's my notes here? November 18th came out 77. There was a single that came out first in September for the song Problem Child, which is probably my favorite song in there. Well, it's hard to say. It's a great one. Problem Child's cool. Very loose sounding. The production, though, that they came away with Dave on, which was very different than they got with the non-production of Nick Lowe, and I think it's because they were in a nicer studio. And all that noise that they made on the first album was due to playing on shitty equipment through like a board that was basically in a closet. That's kind of what got that sound. Now they had a little bit of cachet, so they went to, I think we did it, at the Britannia Row. That was Pink Floyd's studio. So they're not going to make any noise in there. Everything's very pristine and sounds right. I mean, look at, the way they make Pink Floyd records. You weren't going to have that explosion of sound. But side one on this thing, because there were still sides back then, you got Problem Child, which is the first song, was also the single. Don't Cry Wolf, which was the second single that was released in December. It's probably my second favorite song. And then One Way Love was track 3. These 3 opening songs, I think, are the best ones on the album. or the ones most likely to be able to get some kind of traction on whatever passed for rock radio, whatever BBC would play this kind of music. If they even did, I don't know what the hell was going on with punk rock being heard on the BBC back then. You had John Peel, who yeah, it was getting played, but and the first 3 tracks are good, but there's no hit potential there. Like, you don't hear them be like, oh, this is another New Rose. Didn't have another New Rose. Didn't have time to write another New Rose. Track 4 is Politics. I like that one. It's cool. It's kind of them saying they don't care about politics, which is one of the things I love about the Damned. I mean, look, we know politics are shitty. Politicians are evil. Personally, I think voting doesn't matter. And I kind of sussed that out when I was like 14, but whatever. But it's not like a standout. Stretcher Case Baby, or Stretcher Case, track 5, is a standout. It's a good one. I know they played that recently, like within the when I say recently, I mean maybe within the last 10 years. That's a cool one. I like that. And again, it's a frustrating song because you can hear that if they had the time to road test this material, all these songs would have been better. With the time to put harmonies to them, whatever, it would have just been better. Ben Benner is the star quarterback. You Take My Money. Open side 2. It's cool. It's kind of rudimentary. You can tell they came up with it in a short period of time. These songs on this album almost sound like jams that they just decided, okay, we'll repeat this part, and it'll be a song. Alone is track 8. As I'm thinking about it, I can't even recall that one in my head. What the fuck is Alone like? I don't know. I told you I'm not good at this. The rest of the album, again, like the rest of it is like the same thing. Like, what is all this? Track 11, has some saxophone in it. I'm naming the tracks. Who cares? I don't. It's all side 2. Kind of all blends into me. Sick of Being Sick is cool. That's the last song on the album. And then you got Alone, Your Eyes, track 9, which reminds me of You Take My Money. It's almost like the same thing. I think they had a part that they made 2 songs out of. Track 10 is Creep. 12 songs on it. The standouts are the first 3, though. Idiot Box. Oh, I don't think I mentioned that. That was after Stretcher Case, Baby. That's a song that Rat wrote. I think Rat and Dave wrote that one. It's the most diverse song in the album, in a sense that it sticks out. It sounds a bit different. And again, it's frustrating because it could have been a good song if their label gave them the time to do it. But I understand, because punk rock, no one knew if it would last 2 months or 2 weeks. The iron was hot, and they wanted to hit it while it was hot. The problem is, shitting this album out, which is exactly what happened, it killed their momentum. It wasn't like it was bad, although some people did call it bad. It was just subpar. It was just low effort. It was just what they had that weekend to throw together in Pink Floyd's studio with super producer Nick Mason. And when you take those kind of circumstances and those elements, it sounds pretty much just like you think it would sound like. The overall production of it is just way too... There's no real bass to be had here. Low end, I guess I should say. You can hear the bass, but there's no low end. Lou Edmonds, if you didn't tell me he was on the album, I'd have no idea. But despite all this, I still like this album. I like it and I play it. I might actually play this more than the first one. Because the first one's great, it's great, all those songs, neat, and it's just whatever. But this album is the Dark Horse. But I think Dark Horse, the terminology using that would mean there's some quality to it, so I don't know if that's the right term for it. It's definitely not quality. It's not a good album. Certainly not a good damned album. But objectively, I think it's good because I listened to it, but there's a difference between objectively thinking something's good and the whole subjective thing. I can't stand when people say, oh, music is subjective. Well, yeah, to a point. But if you have a band that plays music, right, and they're supposed to perform music, and they can't do it, is it still good? You can like it, but it's failing at its objective. So there is an objective thing there that you can use when talking about music. And the other thing, too, is there's always that favorite and best. Like, my favorite band is probably these guys. Or, I have a couple other favorite bands, that are in the very top. But I realize there are other bands that are probably better, But so that's where the subjectivity comes in. But there are objective. Why am I going over this again? I think you got me the first time. I like to think everyone's at least has my average intelligence. So we're going to go with that notion. The Damned, musical pleasure. If you've been avoiding it, don't. Check it out. It's cool. Some of these songs are cool. It's frustrating in the way that that with some time, they would have been much better. But they didn't have the time, and subsequently just shit this out, and it broke up the band. When it came out, no one cared. Neither the singles, Don't Cry Wolf or Problem Child, charted. I think they played They did. They played Problem Child, I think, on Top of the Pops. Or Old Grey Whistle Test, or one of those kind of British shows that they had back then. So they played it on TV, at any rate. And it just wasn't happening. They needed something stronger. But, they were trying to strike while that iron was hot, and they ended up destroying the iron. The band broke up. But not before Rat left and was replaced by John Moss of Future Culture Club fame. So, by 78, they were done. And they're all, Kaplan did a solo thing. I'm not really, Rat did some stuff with somebody else too. They're all kind of doing different stuff. Luckily for us, though, they got back together and made what I think is objectively their best album, Machine Gun Etiquette. And that's one I definitely want to talk about sometime. But I just wanted to make a case for music for pleasure. It's worth checking out. The Damned's never really made an awful album. Even anything. I like anything. I think that has some, and not just subjectively. I think there's some redeeming stuff on anything, and maybe I'll argue that point on another day. But right now, I think that I've said all I can really say about music for pleasure. It's a thing that exists. It's not great. Could have been better. It stopped their trajectory, dead in its tracks. But within a year, they picked the ball back up and scored a touchdown. Don't blame the teacher. Blame the school.